Good evening, Rocket League fans. Welcome to Minor League
And
Doubles.
there's still a big chance here for anyone to take this in regulation, and this is
No!
No! 10 seconds are gone in the ball.
With both members of Orange out of net right now, towards the net. This is a need. Numerics puts it in. This game's not over yet.
Bring out your predictions. Bring out your scores. Let's see where we go. Game 7. Winner moves on. Loser goes home. Fridge in position. Score!
Just an insane series.
I just typed in chat. I can feel my heartbeat. It's so tense.
What a series! All right, we are live with Behind the Goal. It is not Dazrin tonight. Dazrin had some family issues and was unable to join us, but I found everybody's favorite albino. It is
I'm
Curtis.
everybody's only albino. Come on now.
No, that's not true.
Don't make me feel
No.
special when I'm not.
I know 2 albinos. I've known one longer than you. You're my favorite because you're kind of a knobhead, but you're okay. Anyway,
I do what I can.
It is Curtis alongside me tonight for Behind the Goal as we get set to review Week 5, and I'd say look ahead to Week 6, but well, I'll do that next week.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, looking back, I mean, it was a pretty good week, pretty decent matches. Myself and Achieves and Dazrin joined Jay for pretty good week of action. Had some interesting storylines developed, interesting matches go throughout, and there's looking ahead. I mean, it really set the stage for what looks like a pretty good rest of the season.
Yeah, halfway point in the season is now done. I'm just going to pull up my spreadsheet in the background here so I can at least take a look at the season standings from my side. But let's get into the first one, Curtis. The Aviators and the Demolition, as the Aviators finally picking up a season series victory at the expense of the Demolition, who were on a bit of an upswing coming into the week.
Yeah, the Aviators they definitely played a little bit better than they had previously. The Demolition really, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember this one correctly, they basically more or less gave that series away. I think the Aviators, while they did enough to earn it, I think the Demo did enough to lose it.
Just looking at the stats, I think you're a bit right. The Demo kind of swooned right in the middle of that series. They went in. They tied it up in Game 2, but then they kind of let the momentum slip away. And Game 4, which is where they dropped the series, was a 5-0 blowout for the Aviators' favor. But they did well.
Yeah.
They salvaged it and picked up the 3-2, which is good because the Volcanic Division right now, outside of the Elite, still at the top of it, but only by a hair. The Bulls and the Demo both tied for the bottom of the Volcanic right now. They're only 3 games back, so with the Elite having dropped games, that division gets a lot more interesting for the last half of the season.
Absolutely, and the Elite did not do themselves any favors, as we'll talk about later in this podcast. But yeah, the when you have a tight division like this, especially halfway through, you start looking ahead and looking at playoff positioning and things like that. There's going to be a lot of very, very close series coming up, and a lot of intensity from that Volcanic division as we try to figure out a winner of it.
Yeah, and for the Aviators, they needed a bit of a boost. They'd been stuck at the bottom of the Sky Division standings for quite a while, and let's be honest, the playoffs are pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point. They're not going to make it. 10 games back of the division lead. So, and even looking at the wild card, that wild card is log jammed with teams that are at least 5, 6, 7 games ahead of them right now. So I just don't see them making a run-in unless they get a lot of results in their favor for the final 5 weeks. But
It did some help. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, the Demolition, I think, can probably take away from this one. It's not the worst loss in the world, especially given how close their division is and how much of a chance they'll have on the run-in. But they probably didn't want to give this one up, and it's probably a little bit disappointing that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you take a look at that Volcanic division. Like, yes, it's a close division, but to be straight up and honest with you, it's not a great division records-wise. Elite only 1 game over 500 at the moment, and only 2 teams in that division with a positive goal diff. So that's something to look at as well. Bulls and Demo both struggling defensively.
Well, the one thing for me that really stands out for the Elite is the Elite looked really good for the first couple of weeks of the season. They came out of the first 3 weeks. They were sitting basically 13... they're sitting 12-3 coming out of the first weeks of the season, and then the wheels fell off. A 1-4 or a 3-2 series loss in week 4, followed by a sweep this past week. We'll get to that in a little bit. And all of a sudden, that lead, which looked fairly insurmountable, just kind of disappeared in a couple of weeks of bad
majority
results.
of the damage that they did early in the season equaled a pretty substantial lead in the division that has since whittled away. So, and they've done themselves in with some mistakes, but again, we'll get into the elite here in a bit. But as far as the Demolition are concerned, they did themselves they were able to at least get the 2-3, which is that's a major step in the right direction for them. Aviators basically took it to them, and the Demolition had to earn that 5th game win. And that's gonna look good, especially seeing as how they now pull into a tie. Not sure who has that tiebreaker between the Bulls and the Demo as far as that goes, but it's anybody's guess who's gonna come with that division right now.
Yeah, right now I believe it's actually the Demo. No, sorry, it is the Bulls. The Bulls had a 3-2 in their series. That was on week 2, so they currently hold the head-to-head record tiebreaker for the divisional matchups. We'll move on a little bit here to another division, another couple of divisions that are pretty interesting for varying reasons here.
Yeah.
The Spartans dropping a series, a pretty heavy decision too, and a 4-1 to the Bears, who find themselves in a 3-way tie for the lead in the Sun.
Yeah, and the Spartans find themselves in 3rd place in a division that is absolutely the best in MLD right now, with the top 3 teams that are well above 500 at this point, looking at the Lightning and the Sharks ahead of them. They're only 2 games back of the Sharks at this point, though, which is a decent place to be at the halfway point. So they're right on their heels, but they are a full 4 games back of the Lightning, who are playing out of their minds right at the moment, and a couple of decent players over there, a couple of well-improved players. So the Spartans are going to have their work cut out for them to stay competitive in that division. But I think if they can, they went down this series, which I'm not, or no, they actually, wait a second. No, they did go down 4-1 in this series. If they can right the ship, I think they'll be fine, but that needs to start with week 6.
Well, this for me is a blip. The Spartans came into this week in a share of the Storm Division lead with the Lightning, and the Sharks like a game behind them. The Bears, however, got a completely retooled roster, and picking up MLD Hall of Famer and former champion Lockman 97, who put on a pretty good debut. Just pulling up the stats here real quick. In his debut, 11 goals, 4 assists, 11 saves, and 19 shots for the MLD Hall of Famer, as he helped his team on to a 4-1 series win. So,
yeah,
I mean, part of this, I think the Spartans just ran into a team that was looking to come together, and rather than struggle as a lot of teams have with a midseason roster change, the Bears were really lifted by this one, and the Spartans kind of caught off guard.
Well, and you take a look at that Sun division, talking about the Bears, and I think ultimately with the other teams in that division struggling, talking about the Pandas we'll talk about in a bit, and the Rhinos, I think it's the Bears division to take. That division is definitely up for grabs, and if they can get Lockman and he's on point like he was this week, then I don't foresee a conclusion to that division that doesn't sit the Bears on top of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially given the fact that the Pirates and the Rhinos have both been struggling for the last couple of weeks. The Pirates have had the Pirates have had no consistency since hitting that top of the division. The Rhinos have been fast on their heels, but haven't been able to take advantage any time that the Pirates stumble. And it's that Sun division is going to be one that on the way down the stretch, it's looking like it's going to be a really, really close race come the final 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a fun thing to watch. And the Spartans, I think, like you said, this is a blip going. And when you take a look at the Sharks and the Lightning, I think they're due for a blip sometime soon as well. So we'll see where that one shakes out. It's going to be a fun couple of divisions to watch, both the Sun and the Storm divisions, as we get into the last half of the season.
Yeah, moving on, it's back to the Volcanic in the Sky. The Dodgers with a 5-0 sweep of the Hawks, and I watched a bit of this one on the bootleg. The Hawks did not look good in this series, were really outclassed by the Dodgers. 51 shots registered for the Dodgers compared to 17 for the Hawks, and that just tells you of a team, both of these teams, with roster changes in the lead up to this week, one team making the better of it.
One team making the better of it, but the Dodgers got a step up here. The reason that the nice part for them is that they were able to basically jump ahead of both the Bulls and the Demolition with this series, and now they find themselves just one game back of the Elite after the Elite got 5-0'd. So the Dodgers are moving in the right direction at the right time. that is a big step for them going up against a Hawks team that arguably was struggling and still is struggling, sitting at 9-15 now, or 9-16 now. They're one game back at the third place spot in that Sky division. They're in for a rough tilt as well. They just can't seem to figure it out. Their goal diff is not great right now, but let's halfway through. I mean, they can turn it around, but it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, the Hawks, since making the playoffs in Season 1, I actually, if I remember correctly, if my MLD history remembers me correctly, they made the final in Season 1. I'm sure somebody will probably correct me at some point here, but they have not been back to the playoffs since then. And for whatever reason it is, the Hawks franchise has been cursed for as long as I've been here, at the very least. It's just something will go wrong at every juncture, and they just cannot find a way to put a run together to get back in. And yeah. I think this season, with the Ducks and the Jets playing the way they are in the division, again, this might be another season of on the outside looking in for the Hawks.
Yeah, I honestly, there's no team that I would. I mean, I want to see every team make the playoffs, but I also want to see them earn it. At the moment, the Hawks just seem to run into every obstacle that stops them from doing so, not just this season, but previous, as you mentioned. So be interesting to see if they can turn it around. But taking a look up at the top of that division, I don't think anyone's catching the Ducks or really the Jets in my view. So
the Ducks, I think it's just the Ducks are waiting for a team to figure them out. We can talk about that a little bit as we get to theirs next. But the Jets, on the other hand, they put up some good results, but at the same time, they struggle here and there, and they don't put up the greatest results in consistency. So we'll see how that goes.
Consistently inconsistent, I think, is the term you're looking for.
Yeah, pretty much. But, I mean, for the Hawks, this one, they got to put in the rearview mirror. They have to get that roster to gel.
Yep.
Knowing for the next couple of weeks, they're probably going to be using Uppercase 1 and Mr. McNeil.
Giving you a heads up, my lights just flickered, so if I leave you, be prepared.
I saw that. Thunderstorm is greater than Curtis.
Yes,
oh, man.
Yeah, that's usually how that goes. So just keep in mind, like, it could be a Rip Curtis kind of day. So no problem.
I mean, but, this podcast was Rip when Daz told me he wasn't going to make it. It's the meme team in here. But we'll move on here to the Ducks and the Bulls. The Bulls unable to come up with a way to get past the Ducks in the rematch from the Season 4 championship. And this one, I think a lot of people had been saying on paper this one was a lot closer than the scoreline really reflected.
Yeah, it's taking a look, though. The paper, the stats don't lie. I mean, this, even though the gameplay may have been closer than the stats reflect, that's not saying much because the stats are pretty lopsided. I mean, 12 of the 25 goals the Ducks put in were assisted. They outscored them by over double, and swept 5 games from them. I mean, it's hard to take a look at that and think that it was going to look close. I did not see the stream, so I wasn't able to, gauge that. But I mean, taking a look at it, looked kind of rough from here.
Yeah, and, for the Bulls, this one's going to be disappointing because I know that they wanted to get into this one with a rematch, but the Ducks are this team that is just still waiting to be solved. And for a lot of teams, they just have not found that recipe for being able to turn off the Ducks' midfield pressure. And I talk about it a lot when I'm casting the Ducks, and it has to do with not giving them easy possession. If you can force them back, make them uncomfortable, because they don't defend particularly well. They just take advantage of really weak touches and recycle possession that way.
They punish hard.
They do. And if you don't give them anything to punish, they don't really have a way to generate a lot more out of that. They really just prey on teams that give them things. And I think the first team that stops giving them easy play is going to be the team that finally breaks that winning streak.
Yeah, and I mean, the Ducks' main mentality this season has been a great defense is a perfect offense. Mm-hmm. And as of right now, I mean, you can't really argue with the results. They're sitting well above 500. The 15 games over 500 right now through 5 weeks. That's nothing to shake a stick at. That team is definitely good, and they certainly have a chance to get back to the championship at least. So but you take a look at a Bulls team who was there last season, and they ran up against a Ducks team that was just a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, and the Ducks for the longest time have just been that puzzle that no team can really solve. And I can't stress it enough. It's just teams are going to have to learn what it is that makes that team tick and how to stop it, because they've looked beatable. They've had 3-2 series all season long, but it's just they don't get punished for the mistakes that they make. And it's things will come home to roost eventually. I mean, I don't think a team is going to go 2 full seasons undefeated. It could happen, and if it does, I will probably have to dab on stream again or something like that. But
now, talking about the Bulls, they are in a scenario right now where they're in third in that Volcanic division, and that's not a fantastic division. So they could also be one of those that can make a step up. I think that's the Dodgers division to lose, but the Bulls can definitely stake a claim to it as long as they have a good couple weeks coming out of the break.
Yeah, I have to agree on that part. And with the fact that that division has been dropping games left, right, and center against the Sky division right now, it's anybody's division to win. It was the elites to lose coming into these couple of weeks, and they kind of did that. They fell right back down into that fight with the other teams in the division. And when you can't count out all 4 teams in the division for the win, anything can happen on the run. And we saw that last season with the Dodgers and the Elite having to play the rivalry game week 10, winner in the playoffs, lose or not. And you just get that sense that this season we're in for more of the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about a team that going from, we're talking about the Ducks. Now let's go over to the Flames, who are currently basically playing world beaters themselves, sitting in an 18-7, second best record in the league. They went up against the Puffins and really show a bit of a show of strength here in this particular series.
And the one thing about the Puffins, and I hate to say it, is that they've just never found a way to really win a series right now. They've had times where they've snatched a defeat from the jaws of victory, and it's been a recurring theme. Dazrin and I talked about it last week. 5. Oh, I mean, they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat in Game 5 of this one. Yeah. Getting their one game back, but weeks 2, 3, and 4 leading up to this, they could not hold a lead for the life of them in the series. In a game, it just did not go for them. And it's still a question of when will that turn around for them, because right now
the Puffins are struggling offensively. You know, and I was able to watch that stream while I was at work, and the biggest thing I saw is they were basically chasing their own tail in their own end for a majority of it. The Flames had them running around like, puffins with their heads cut off. And that was mainly the issue. I mean, 7 goals in 5 games, you have to be able to score more than that against any team in the MLD to be successful by any stretch of the imagination. And they didn't play terrible defensively, holding the Flames to 14 goals. We've seen much higher goal totals through a series, but they when they were focused on defense, they weren't focused on offense, and it really came back to hurt them.
Well, the one thing for them that really burned them was when they started committing upfield. When they tried to get that offense working, they just couldn't find a way to convert on the chances, and they get burned back the other way because the Flames would drop really deep.
They were overextending.
Not only that, but even in transition, they got caught a lot in transition. The Flames are really good about recognizing when a team is going to give them opportunity. It's very similar to how the Ducks play, where you sit back, you let the other team make mistakes, and then punish. The Flames are very, very good at punishing that as well. And we won't see them at least in the regular season, but a Flames and Ducks MLE championship match, that one might be a really big chess match. That would be low scoring.
That would be a lot of fun to watch. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But yeah, the Puffins had some struggles. Flames took advantage. I mean, that's been the story of the Puffins season to this point. They currently sit 3rd in that Arctic division, looking up at the Foxes, and taking a look. Blizzard sitting right there in the middle, but Foxes not really letting up, and I don't see really anything that tells me that they're going to be giving away that division anytime soon. So Puffins are looking up at a bit of a hill to climb. See if they can do that.
Yeah, ignore that. I accidentally hit the wrong hotkey there, but we'll move on to match number 6 on the week. It was the Foxes and the Pandas. Yeah, I was typing something, and my hotkeys are tied to the number bar at the top. So the Foxes and the Pandas, another low-scoring series, but a sweep nonetheless, as the Pandas' momentum finally comes to a grinding halt, and they go back to giving up a number of games against a division that is kind of hit or miss. And the Foxes, not saying that they're not a good team by any stretch, but they're kind of two extremes there. The Foxes and the Blizzards at the top, and then a big gap back to the Puffins and the Wolves.
Yeah, and this you take a look at the Pandas division as well, the Tropic division, and it's another situation where it's the Hurricanes and Flames up at the top, and then there's a gap, and the Tigers and Pandas are sitting where they're sitting. So a little bit of a similarity there to a point, but yeah, talking about the Foxes at this point, they are playing pretty well, and they to hold the team to 6 goals in 5 games, you got to be doing something pretty good to do that. And even though the Pandas had a decent amount of shots, the Foxes were there to make saves on them. I mean, they were forced to make saves on 16 of the 26 shots that they saw, and that's 26 shots is nothing to be. That's not a slouching number through a 5-game series, but they just weren't able to put the ball in the hole.
Yeah, and part of that really just came down to they were kind of struggling to get quality shots on goal. Yeah, they had 26, but a lot of those were opportunities where Patabread was trying to make the dribble happen. Not Patabread, sorry. Palm Wonderful. Palm Wonderful was trying to make the dribble happen just a little bit too much and was kind of losing ball in transition. And
we actually... just real quick, we actually saw that as a kind of a rhythm throughout the week. We saw multiple teams in multiple games that just kind of had one particular teammate make a lot of individual efforts and kind of just take his teammate out of the play. Mm-hmm. We saw that in the Rhino series as well. So this is a common theme that we're starting to see, and something that's going to have to be corrected.
Yeah, and I mean, the dribble works fine if you're able to get it through, but the difficulty is when your teammate isn't set up in a position to try and recover possession as the dribble fails. And this was the case with Cardinal and Palm Wonderful, is that Cardinal wasn't in a spot to support that ball when he loses the 50. Mm-hmm. And it was just a little bit too slow in the reaction time, a little bit of mispositioning. But the Foxes were given chance after chance as a result. And they never made the adjustment in-game to be able to make that change and try and salvage a couple games out of that series. Yeah, it was kind of like, to a point, it was kind of rough to watch because it was kind of a repetitive scenario where we knew what was going to happen, and then it happened, and then we're like, well, we knew it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, but something they're going to have to correct. I mean, they see it, they see the VODs, they hear the criticism. Let's see if they can correct that going forward, because the Pandas, yes, they're sitting at the bottom of that division, but they're only 5 games out. They're 5 games away from the 500 mark. If they can get back to 500, they can look ahead to the rest of the season, see if they can salvage something out of this. Yeah, and the difficulty, at least for them winning the division, is the Flames are playing so well. But when you look at the wildcard table is really, really interesting to look at this point.
It's stacked, yeah.
Well, right now, so the division leaders are the Flames, the Elite, and the Pirates. And there's this big cluster of teams, right from the Elite at 13 and 12, second in the conference, all the way down to the Warriors at 9 and 16. That's 4 games that separates 11 teams in the Orange Conference.
1 week can literally change the entirety of the wildcard standings. That's where we are at, and that's why the wildcard is such a big deal. And so it gives a lot. These teams, everybody in the Orange Conference has something to fight for at this point. So there's literally no guarantee that any of these is going to make the wildcard.
Yeah, and that's going to be something to watch down the stretch for the Orange Conference. It's going to come down to goal differential for the most part. So teams are really going to have to either put up some big numbers and a couple of wins, or really start to lock it down on defense and grind out those close losses and close wins to try and avoid a situation where they're going to miss out on an equal record. But
keep in mind that had a thought. I hate when that happens. Oh, the Dodgers, who have the highest goal differential in that Orange Conference wildcard race, they are only 15 goal differential away from the Pandas at -7. That's the last team that has a negative goal differential that is greater than -10. So I think everybody else down in the double digits in goal diff as far as negatives go, even the Warriors sitting at -15. I really don't think, like, realistically, when you look at the standings at the end of week 10, I don't think the Warriors are going to make it in. But you take a look at the Pandas, that's a team that could do it because they are at least able to try to keep it even as far as the goal diff goes.
I would argue that if the Warriors put up 3 big weeks in week 8, week 9, and week 10, they can still make the playoffs. That they are not out of this yet. They are only 2 games back from a 3-way tie at the top of their division. 2 games separates the entirety of the Sun division. I have to vehemently disagree with that. I think the Warriors can make the playoffs if they have 3 really good weeks to end the season, and they don't have 2 bad weeks for week 6 and 7. If they can keep pace for the next 2 weeks and then light up the Sun division, they'll win on the run-in.
Well, taking a look at their Warriors' next couple of games as we go ahead and talk about them, they've got the Sharks in week 6. That's going to be a tough matchup. They have the Spartans in week 7, which that's something that might be doable. And then they have where are they at? There they are. They have the Bears, which the Bears we talked about a little earlier have a retooled roster. That's going to be a tough matchup, I think, as well. So they're going to have the next 3 weeks, I think, are going to be tough on them, especially when you look at Starbase and Cosmic as 2 of those 3 maps.
Yes and no. I mean, the Starbase week coming up, they're going to have the advantage of having this off week to be able to practice a little bit more, really get those bounces down, be able to figure things out. But Cosmic, you're probably right. They might have to actually pass up the week of practice on Beckwith for week 7 to be able to get that extra practice in for Cosmic, because that match is going to be so important. But we're off on a tangent here. We'll go on a little bit further here as the Hurricanes.
You and I do that every so often.
It's true, but the luxury of only having a recap show is even if we run long on half an hour, we're not technically running overtime. Hurricanes and the Wolves, a 4-1 victory for the Hurricanes over the Wolves, and in pretty much every category, a win on the scorecard as well. And for the Wolves and your former franchise, Curtis, haven't found a way to get that pack to come together in that division yet.
Yeah, Wolves kind of a bit of a struggle. They did have the advantage in the shots. However, both teams really lacked in the shooting department. But taking a look, I mean, the big thing for me that I'm going to be looking at is the Wolves coming into the rest of this season, because at the moment they've hit a bit of a struggle bus. They're sitting at the bottom of the Arctic Division, sitting at well under 500 at the moment. They've got the Tigers up next in week 6, and that could be a decent leapfrog for them. Taking a look, because the Tigers are struggling in their own right, 3 games under 500. If the Wolves can come out of it with a decent bit of practice, can start to gel, and can start to figure things out, then they could essentially kind of start their season anew. And if they can get back to the 500 mark, I think that's going to be a big jump in the right direction for them. But I think the playoffs might be a long shot at this point.
Yeah, I think at this point the playoffs are kind of a bit of a foregone conclusion for them as well, tied at the bottom of the league at 7 and 18, alongside the Comets. And with the Blue Conference wild card, such a difficult one to crack, the only way in is to try and overhaul that 10-game gap to the Foxes, and I just don't see that happening.
No,
but
agreed.
if they can put some big strides in towards getting that roster to gel and really finding a way to have a good run in to end the season, there might be a good shot at them next season, I think, if they can keep a bit of that roster together rather than have to blow it up again.
Taking a look, they are currently 9 games out of the last wild card spot in the Blue Conference as well. Jets sitting up in that last spot. There's 9 games is quite a bit to handle. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But taking a look, let's take a look at their next couple of weeks going forward as we get in. They have talking about the Wolves, the Tigers, as I mentioned. They have the Wolves. Wolves and Pandas. So they have the Pandas at Beckwith, and then Cosmic. As we look at the next 3 weeks, they have the Foxes. So that's going to be a rough weekend on Cosmic, I think. But ultimately, if they can make a stand on Starbase and on Beckwith, they can certainly try to turn their season around. It's going to be rough sailing coming into Cosmic, but if they can figure it out for those first 2, then I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, and it's a long season. We know that.
It is. And
it's just going to be kind of a retooling process, I think, for them right now. It's been a tough start to the season for them. Yep. And it's at this point, it's really just taking it one match at a time, maybe try to play a bit of spoiler moving on in the rest of the season. But definitely not the worst performances up to this point, just not quite the ones that you need in this league with the competition level so high season on season.
for sure. And so as far as the Hurricanes go, Hurricanes sitting up top the Orange Division wildcard standings, so that's good for them. They're stuck in that Tropic Division. They're in second place in that Tropic Division, taking a look at the top of that division where they're looking way up there as they are staring into the face of the Flames, who are playing some really good Rocket League right now. So. Yeah. If they can, keep just stay steady, and I think they have a good shot at taking that wild card. However, as we mentioned before, it is a logjam in those standings.
I mean, they currently hold one of the 2 wild card spots for the Orange Conference. So if they keep winning like they're winning, they'll have a really good shot.
Just stay
at that.
Steady. Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Back to the Volcanic and the Sky Divisions as the Jets pick up a 5-0 sweep over the Elite. And this one never looked like a contest from the get-go here. The Elite with 25 saves, but 57 shots on goal for the Jets. This one was one-way traffic for 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's essentially one end of the field was asking for their money back for the spectating of this particular matchup. Elite definitely had some issues that they could not correct in time. The Jets just poured it on constantly, and it'd be interesting to see what the Elite can do coming in to answer in week 6. Like as we mentioned before, they sit at the top of their division, but as you go into week 6, you have the Aviators, who are coming off a good series, and then right after that they have the Ducks. So that could be a rough scenario as it is anyway. The thunder is booming around my apartment. I'm not sure if you guys heard that at all, but it was pretty savage. So, but yeah, the Elite are gonna, if they can't get themselves corrected, they're gonna find themselves in a really rough situation in a couple weeks.
Well, it's a double whammy too, because Wiffles, who had been a pretty crucial cog in that Elite machine, graduated from the league and has been replaced by Migas. Haven't seen Migas play yet. By all accounts, probably a solid replacement, but it's going to be on that team to gel. And from what we've seen with the Elite right now, it's been a bit of a struggle for them. They've been on some weeks and then they've just been completely off the next. And for the Jets, this 5-0 is kind of representative of their swinginess right now, because they dropped a series to the Demolition last week, and we've talked a bit about the Demolition at length. They haven't been the strongest opponent to their Volcanic Division rivals. They've been performing well, but they haven't been closing out the games. And with the way that the top of that division has fallen to the sky, now it's anybody's guess who's going to take that Volcanic.
Talking about the Elite for one more second, their next 4 weeks are going to be tough matchups, basically all the way through. And then they take a look at week 10. If they can somehow survive and at least tread water up until week 10, they do have the demo in week 10 on Manfield. And that could be something that they could put themselves in a position where they control their own destiny against the Demolition, but they have to get things corrected during the break.
I mean, what's to say that the demo haven't turned things around entirely by that point,
True.
and are in the process of being world beaters? Like, it's I mean, we've seen how much can change in 5 weeks of the regular season up to this point. There is a lot of stuff that can change in the 5 weeks leading into the playoffs, and it's up to both of these teams to stay the course. The Jets have a lot of work at hand right now to try and chase down the Ducks, and I think it's going to be up to them to try and beat them in the head-to-head when they meet on week 9. And for the Elite, it's going to be trying to stay above water. Don't lose harder than your opponents lose, and win as well as or better than them in their endeavors here.
Yeah, completely agree with that. But this story is definitely the Jets. Yes, they won the series, but it was more the Elite lost it based on their play.
Yeah, that's kind of true. They just never got into this series, and once the Jets got out in front, they stayed out in front. There wasn't a lot that the Elite were really doing well at most points of that series. But week's over, put it in the rearview mirror, move on. There's still 5 weeks left in the season. You're still in the division lead. That's at the end of the day, that's the thing that's still important. That lead that you staked yourself to from 3 weeks, that's still yours. It's just down to a game. Now it's on you to do the hard work and extend that lead back to where it was.
And then looking ahead, looking at the next game that we have, a couple of division leaders, Lightning and the Pirates, that went head-to-head. And this was a series that was a 5-0 for the Lightning. Pirates had a struggle. There's no doubt about that, and the Lightning just figured them out and would not let up.
Well, Lightning have been strong for a couple of weeks running now.
Yes.
Saw some good results last week on Wasteland. More good results this week, as they almost had more than double the shot counts of the Pirates. And again, the Pirates, very hit or miss team. They'll come out and they'll have a really good series like they did, I think, against the Rhinos earlier on to take the lead in the Sun Division, only to relinquish that lead by giving up a 5-0 to the Lightning and falling into a 3-way tie with the Rhinos and the Bears for that Sun Division lead. For the Lightning, though, I think the critical thing from this point on is who they get now to replace Kendo, if Kendo needs to be replaced. Kendo very publicly stating he was stepping away from playing in the league earlier this week, and it's a question mark at this point whether or not he's coming back now that he's had some time to clear his head, and if not, who the Bolts will get to replace them, because he'd had 2 good weeks for week 4 and week 5.
Yeah, absolutely, and they definitely were able to work with him quite a bit. And Kendo, it's going to be difficult to replace his production. He's a darn good Rocket League player, and for the Lightning to lose him at this point halfway through the season, it's going to be on the other guys on that roster, for example, like a Ninja Rider, to step up. And Kendo, yes, he's a huge loss, but next man up has got to be the mentality. And they have a Bears team that is going to be looking for blood in week 6 on Starbase. It's going to be interesting to see what Kendo decides to do and if the Lightning can adjust.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for them is that they've used Moose for 4 weeks now. He's got 20 games of his maximum 35 played. And that's something that they really need to take into consideration with the Storm Division competition, as tough as it is. Can they afford to ride the Moose for another week against the Bears? And I think a lot of that's going to come down to how they play their roster out over this week-long break. They have a little bit of time to do some scouting if they have to replace Kendo. And if they can find somebody who will mesh well with Ninja Rider and that they're comfortable playing on Arc against the Bears, they might have a good shot at being able to keep Moose for the final run-in against their division.
Now, if my calculations are correct and my math is correct, the one matchup that the Lightning, or the 2 matchups that the Lightning have that are going to be against teams above the 500 mark are going to be the Week 10 matchup against the Sharks and this actual matchup against the Bears coming up. So week 5 and week 10, the other ones, the week 7, 8, and 9 are middle tier to lower tier teams in the standings. For example, they have the Comets week 9, which are currently sitting at the bottom of the division. So that can be, they have the schedule in their favor to be able to do something. Can they do it? That's the question.
Well, the biggest thing is they still have to play the Spartans. Spartans 5 games above 500, and that's that Storm Division there. 3 teams above 500 at that point.
Yep.
And all of them with a legitimate shot to really win the division. So the Lightning in the driver's seat right now, they control their fate for the moment. But it's anybody's game. If they stumble against a team like the Bears, if they can't find a way through the remainder of the Sun Division, then that lead is going to evaporate, and they're going to be the ones having to chase down and win the matchups head-to-head. Conversely, for the Pirates, they are going to have to try and tread water, because with that Sun Division so close, you can't afford to have a bad week. You can't afford to have a bad game, because every game matters right now in that division, especially when you don't control your opponent's win-loss record by playing them head-to-head.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing to look at, like, they stumble, and all of a sudden they're on the outside looking in even at the wild card race, because the Rhinos are currently on the outside looking in to that wild card race, and they're second in that division. Set in fact 11 and 14. There are 3 teams in that wild card race at 11 and 14 right now. So it could be, if they can't figure it out, then it's gonna be Rip Pirates the next team up.
Yeah, but, conveniently speaking, that wild card race is only separated by 4 games from top to bottom.
True.
Like, the Orange Conference right now has no stratification that you see in the Blue Conference. You look at the Blue Conference wildcard race, and that is a tire fire if you're on the outside right now. If you are below 500, there is almost no chance that you're going to be able to recover. So you look at the division leaders, you got the Ducks, the Lightning, and the Foxes. They're all sitting at well above 500. But then the rest of that Storm division right now, the Sharks at 17 and 8, and the Spartans at 15 and 10. The Spartans just outside because they're behind the Jets by 1 game. But once you fall off past the Blizzard, also at 15 and 10, it's a big gap to try and make up that.
It's a 5-game gap. Yep, and the Aviators are currently looking up and trying to find the Blizzard. and unable to do so. So yeah, it's going to make a difference. It's going to make a difference. But the one thing that is you're going to have to take a look at, though, as far as the Orange Conference goes, is back in that Sun division, because one of those teams, we don't know which one yet, but one of those teams is going to make the playoffs. And it's going to be it's anyone's guess. It's when all four teams are under 500, it's going to be anyone's guess who is going to get that bid.
Fun fact: the Sun Division had the only team below 500 to make the playoffs last season, as the Rhinos snuck in one game under 500 in what ended up being a fairly weak Sun Division last season. So we'll see more of the same probably this season as all these teams try to find their footing. But you and I got to get through three more here. Speaking of the Sun Division and Storm Division, the Sharks and the Rhinos. The Sharks picking up a really solid win, 4-1 over the Rhinos, as the Rhinos again continue to struggle for a couple weeks running.
And again, this was the one I was been talking about with the Rhinos struggling with the individual efforts. Rawlings didn't really get a chance to touch the ball. I think that's a majority of what the issue was, and it was really, really a struggle going forward, as it was basically 1v2 the entire series.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I think, how you and I both saw that one when we were casting it on Friday night. The Sharks, conversely, were playing really, really well. They were capitalizing on everything the Rhinos gave them. And the shot totals represent that. 39 for the Sharks. Very consistent offense from them.
Yeah, a lot less for the Rhinos. Yeah, agreed. And that's something that during the break they're going to have to correct. I mean, it's not like Rawlings played badly in the times he did touch the ball. I can't think of any glorious mistakes that he generally made that resulted in them losing. It was just a matter of just too much Sharks offense too fast, and only, generally speaking, one person back. Sometimes two if he got back in time. There wasn't much they can do.
Yeah, and there isn't a lot you can do when one teammate ends up out of position for whatever reason, while the other one is carrying the bulk of play. And we talked about that with the Pandas, where if you have a teammate who's working the individual effort, you have to be set up in such a way to support that. And it doesn't necessarily mean being in position for a first-time pass to a shot on goal, but just in a position where if they lose possession of the ball, you're able to recover and still be able to support them. Support defensively and cycle possession.
Exactly. So
that's something very few teams in the league do well, though.
Yep. So, but taking a look at the as far as the team situations go, Rhinos currently in that log jam in the in the Sun division, and the Sharks currently in the second spot in the Storm division, looking up at the Lightning, who again have some stress going on right now with Kendo. So, I mean, it could be the Sharks division to take, but the Spartans are sitting there at 15-10, just kind of looking up like, hey, you know what? We're still here. So it could be an interesting couple of weeks in that Storm division.
Yeah, I will say it this way, too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Sharks have not made the playoffs in their four-season history to this point. So if they are able to make that run-in work in their favor, they could be in for a playoff run for the first time. And we look forward to seeing if they can make it. But two more matches to get through. Back to the Tropic and the Arctic as we get our hot snow, I suppose. The Tigers and the Blizzard. The Tigers and the Blizzard head-to-head, as the Tigers come away with a 3-2 victory. But the Blizzard, the offensive numbers kind of staggering. 18 shots, and they still managed to find 2 wins in that series. Yeah,
they still. Well, I think of the 18 shots, 11 of them found the back of the net. So they were opportunistic with the shots they were taking. They were taking smart chances, it looks like, and 7 of those 11 goals were assisted. So not a lot of individual efforts. Looks like a decent amount of passes, probably off the back wall, around the corners, things of that nature that the Blizzard were able to take advantage of. But and I talk about splitting a series. That's about as split as you can get while still having a 3-2 deficit in your not in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Blizzard, I've talked about this a little bit. We touched on it on the broadcast that the Blizzard average score per game, their average relative score per game, they actually are a negative average score generated team per game, despite having the record that they do, still sitting 2 games off of the lead of the Arctic division. Mm-hmm. So when they lose, they tend to lose hard. But when they win, it's very, very close, and they don't make up that big score deficit that they give up when they lose. So I think that's going to be something that they need to work on over the next couple of weeks, is just trying to find a way to lose less hard. They can eke out the close wins too, but make sure those losses are close losses. And then it'll be a little bit more reflective. And I don't hate the Blizzard. I actually love the Blizzard because I named the team and helped design the logo. But statistically speaking,
Man,
I
it's
always
putting you on blast.
I always have to harp on the statistics. You know that. I'm an analyst. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And when I see a team that for all intents and purposes should be losing, I always wonder why. And it's a lot of this is simply just that they win a lot of close games, but they lose.
That's
some
it.
absolute
Manatee's
decisions.
going to Reddit.
I mean, more Reddit exposure for MLD. I'm fine with that. I will upvote that in a heartbeat.
Manatee, we love you. But yeah, no, the Blizzard, it was about as much a split series as you can imagine. And the thing is like when they play well, as you mentioned, they're close. It's close games, but I think it's my favorite phase. They have to find a way to lose less hard. That about covers it. I can't think of a better way to put that. I feel like I should know a better way to put that, but
that's kind of how I said it. Just lose less hard.
Lose less hard. All right. Well, that's something that the Blizzard could take into week 6. Hey, we got to lose less hard.
Why is that 26 pixels to the right? That was triggering me. Okay, I fixed the alignment for some reason. Warriors in the comments. The Warriors picking up a series win after a couple of weeks, struggling to find some wins over a Comets franchise that, after making the playoffs, after making the conference championship last season, just really struggling to find a grip this time around.
Yeah, and two teams that are generally struggling regardless. I mean, the Warriors finding the 4-1 win. Before that, they were ahead of, or they were behind the Comets in the standings. So, like, as far as the league standings go, Comets found a way to lose 4 games. And taking a look at the numbers, 32 shots for the Warriors that I see versus just 22. And then the big thing you notice is that not a high assisted goals to goals ratio for either team. Only 1 of the 8 goals that the Comets had were assisted. 6 of the 15 that the Warriors had were assisted. So individual efforts more or less coming to roost, which is something that, the successful teams in this league and in any part of Rocket League, they're going to be able to utilize their teammates.
Yes and no. Part of the thing that you'll see pretty frequently is if you have a team that is beating another team that's making a lot of mistakes, you'll see a lot of unassisted goals because you'll just basically win a challenge at midfield and have an open net.
Okay, fair.
Or you'll have a double commit offensively that goes off the backboard and you're pointing forward and driving downfield.
Yeah.
The teams that are creating offense, however, will see a high assist percentage because those are the teams that are breaking down teams on defense that are.
You found a different layer to my analysis. Yes. Yes, that makes sense.
Play-by-play analysis.
Yeah, that's
play analysis. Curtis knows what his role in the booth is, and it is not figuring out why teams do things the way they do.
That's not a lie. That's not a lie. There's a reason I say score and not why they scored.
Yep, that's why we're such a good team, Curtis, because we cover each other's glaring weaknesses so well. And there's a lot of glare coming off you right now. You're leaning close to your screen, and there's a lot of whiteout on your face.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're trying to look at a webpage and trying to see English and it's decently small text.
It's true. It's true. Feels albino, man. But
feels blind.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we've gotten through the 12. We're only 17 minutes past what I expected to run, so it feels good. If it was me and Daz, we'd still be talking.
Yeah,
you guys
would still be on Elite.
Blackwatch saying that you're a good analyst. Don't listen to that shake.
Blackwatch, you've never heard a good analyst before, have you? It's okay.
Feels J, man.
Oh, Earth, why?
Leftover sunscreen from the. I like this guy. Get him in Discord. Anyway,
I like it.
Couple of housekeeping notes. There will not be an All-Star event this weekend. I'm away, so there will be nobody home to broadcast that. Baja the Beast. I am 5'10". I look a lot shorter on stream because my chair sucks. There will probably be an All-Star event in the week break between Week 10 and the playoffs. but keep your eyes posted to the Discord to find that out. Big thanks to Curtis for joining me on absolutely no notice today. He literally unmuted on TeamSpeak. I'm like, hey, want to co-host with me? And Achieves got salty, but he was playing PUBG, so I wasn't going to force him to leave and do prep with me. Big thanks to Half Shield Hero and all the other people who helped out with this week's graphics for Behind the Goal. I appreciate the work that you put in on a short time frame, as always, to make sure this show doesn't look as terrible as I try to make it look. And big thanks to Cathexis as well for helping moderate UReach, and Clay for stopping in. But that's going to do it. I need to go eat dinner. I'm starving. Curtis needs to make sure that he has tinfoil all over his house because the thunder and the lightning are coming. And he will be
Thunder rolls.
thunderstruck.
No. I was weird for that. I was trying to go like not AC/DC there, but Jay wasn't having it. So that's what it is. But yeah, I don't want to lose power.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to cut this off. So big thanks to everybody as always, and we're going to throw this one over to a host momentarily, but keep your eyes peeled on the Discord for the week coming up. We'll have another Behind the Goal with myself and whoever decides to show up to preview Week 6 next week. It'll be live from Starbase Arc. You've been watching MLD Behind the Goal with Anonymous and Curtis. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow us with our tags right below us. Follow the league. Oh, shoot! You're right.
What?
MVP. I forgot the MVP and the... and the
We
play of
have
the
an
week. You know
MVP
what?
pick.
Well, we have the MVP. I already have that picked. We do it by stats here. So your MVP, your MVP for the week is Majestic Moose, as hashtag Spread the Moose will continue to spread on there.
Spread the Moose.
18
Yes.
goals, 8 assists, 7 saves, 36 shots. Congratulations to Moose of the Lightning. Well done on picking up your MVP for the week. As Manatee gets timed out for spamming repeating characters. RIP Manatee. But because I'm lazy, I'm going to throw on the Play of the Week video, and then I'm going to cut it over to the host. So good night, everybody. Thanks for watching Behind the Goal. Here is your Play of the Week for Week 5.
We go around the corner. Play. Off the back. Getting into frame. Good touch by Blackhawk as he's able to get up and contest that. It'll be a play into the middle. Taken in by the Sharks. He's caught backwards to the ball, and it's going to be a double touch. UReach, I teach, with a ridiculous touch, making it 2-1.
I got my cameras backwards on that one there. UReach just winning that challenge in front of Rawlings, catching Blackhawk off guard. It goes off the backboard, but the follow-through, able to make contact and get that with the spoiler down and in. Sharks lead 2-1.
Blackhawk caught backwards there. He's caught away from the ball.
You so fine.